So there were two new court filings yesterday, one in the case of Michael Cohen and one in the case of Michael Flynn. And when you compare them, it becomes crystal clear that Donald Trump and Bill Barr continue to punish Donald Trump's enemies and reward his friends. Let's talk about the tale of two Michaels, because justice matters. Hey all, Glenn Kirshner here. So two court filings came in yesterday, one in the Michael Flynn case and one in the Michael Cohen case. In the Michael Flynn case, not surprisingly, Bill Barr is weighing in again, trying to get the court system to order Judge Sullivan to dismiss Mike Flynn's case, his guilty plea. In the Michael Cohen case, Michael Cohen, together with the ACLU, is filing a writ trying to get him released from prison because he was put back into prison when he had the nerve to tweet out that he would be publishing a book about President Trump that was not going to be all that flattering. Let's compare how these two Michaels are being treated and then see what happens when you are either the best of friends or the worst of friends with Donald Trump. Yes, it's the tale of two Michaels. Let's start with Mike Flynn, right? Quick recap, Mike Flynn was Trump's national security advisor. He got caught talking on the telephone with the Russians, saying some things he shouldn't have. He then lied to the vice president about those conversations. He lied to the FBI about those conversations. He went into court and pled guilty to making false statements to the FBI. And then Donald Trump started to tweet about how unfair it was, so Bill Barr, put his running shoes on and has been trying ever since to undo Mike Flynn's guilty plea, to do a favor for President Trump's criminal associate, Mike Flynn. So just yesterday, Bill Barr's Department of Justice filed a brief in the Mike Flynn matter. It is this brief. And it has something I don't know that I've ever seen. It has 9 Department of Justice lawyers who signed this brief. I guess we're doing persuasion by the pound here. So the kind of people who signed the brief on behalf of the Department of Justice include Acting Solicitor General, Acting Assistant Attorney General, Counselor to the Solicitor General, Deputy Solicitor General, multiple assistants to the Solicitor General, Acting United States Attorney, Acting Principal Assistant United States Attorney, Assistant United States Attorney. So, in essence, this is Bill Barr filing something in which he is acting like Mike Flynn's defense attorney. He has abandoned his role as a prosecutor who's supposed to be the voice of the people, and he is the voice of Mike Flynn, together with all Mike Flynn's defense attorneys. So I just want to make 2 quick points about this pleading. First of all, in this 20-page pleading, Bill Barr's Department of Justice can barely bring themselves to even say Mike Flynn did anything wrong or committed a crime. They devote less than 1 paragraph to characterizing what Mike Flynn did that got him in hot water. And here's how they spin it. They say that the FBI interviewed Flynn without warning him that he was under investigation or that false statements to the FBI were illegal. Well, let me pause there. When law enforcement officers or agents interview people when they're not locked up, this is not a custodial interview where they would have to advise somebody of their Miranda rights. When they just go in for a voluntary interview in an office or in the White House, they don't say, we need to advise you that you are under investigation. That's not how it's done. And yet Bill Barr makes it sound like a criticism. The FBI didn't even tell him he was under investigation. And the next one is even more laughable. They didn't even tell him false statements to the FBI were illegal. There's no requirement that before the FBI interviews somebody that they say, wait a minute, If you lie to us, that's the federal crime of false statements to the FBI. There's no requirement that they do it. More importantly, I was in court when Michael Flynn entered his guilty plea. Judge Sullivan asked him, "Did you know at the time that lying to the FBI was illegal?" And Mike Flynn said, "Yes, sir, I did." So, these criticisms that Bill Barr, sprinkles into this brief are just pure nonsense. One more thing I want to mention. They say that, Mike Flynn's descriptions of the calls, they were inaccurate in several respects. Inaccurate? They were flat out lies when you look at the materials. He lied to the FBI over and over and over again. And here's something that we don't pay a lot of attention to. He also lied to the vice president about his conversations with the Russians. The national security advisor lied to the vice president about conversations he was having with the Russians. How does that make you feel about our national security? And whether Judge Emmett Sullivan ends up dismissing Mike Flynn's case or not, the fact will remain that Mike Flynn lied to the vice president about national security matters and lied to the FBI about his phone call with the Russians. And yet Donald Trump has recently said, "I would welcome Mike Flynn back into the administration." One other point I want to make about this 9-person brief filed by the Department of Justice, and I'm not going to dwell on it. I could go on for an hour because I am a little bit of an appellate egghead. I was an appellate prosecutor. I argued in front of the DC Federal Circuit Court of Appeals many times and other appellate courts. There's one argument that they make in here that is really kind of laughable. They say the only reason that Judge Sullivan could ever hold a hearing and refuse to dismiss Mike Flynn's case is if the prosecutor was bribed to dismiss the case. That's pure nonsense because they cite another case, United States versus Ham, in the same motion that says bribery is but one example. There are lots of other reasons that a federal court judge could inquire about a really questionable and apparently corrupt motion to dismiss a case, particularly after the defendant pled guilty. So I won't dwell on it, but this 9-attorney pleading, I don't care if 109 Department of Justice lawyers signed this pleading, this thing falls under the weight of its own poor reasoning. Let me turn to Michael Cohen. So Michael Cohen, quick recap, president's former lawyer and fixer. He did some crime together with the president as a co-conspirator. Remember how they got together to pay off playmates and porn stars and then lie about it, trying to bury damaging information that wouldn't come back to haunt the president when he was running for office back in 2016. So Michael Cohen pled guilty. He was sentenced. He went to prison. And then about halfway through his sentence, because the coronavirus was running rampant through the Bureau of Prisons facility where he was serving time, it was decided that he would be put into home detention to complete his sentence. So then Michael Cohen tweeted out that he was finishing up a book about Donald Trump. Now remember, this was about the same time when the Trump administration was fighting mightily to try to keep John Bolton's book from coming out and fighting mightily to keep Trump's niece, Mary Trump's book from coming out. And now Michael Cohen's going to write a book. So even though Michael was serving his sentence on home detention, complying with all conditions that the Bureau of Prisons, the Department of Justice, Bureau of Prisons had set for him, they call him back in when they get wind that he's going to write a book. And they try to make him sign something saying, "I won't write a book," or else they threaten to put him back into prison. Let me read it, and then let's talk about the implications of it. So this is in Michael Cohen's pleading yesterday. Michael Cohen, together with the ACLU, filed a petition for a writ of habeas corpus. That's the great writ. If the government is confining you illegally, you can file for a writ of habeas corpus, asking the court to command the government to release you. Folks, I fear that in the coming weeks and months, we're going to be talking a lot more about the great writ of habeas corpus. So here's what Bill Barr's Department of Justice tries to get Michael Cohen to sign. It says, quote, you will conduct no engagement of any kind with the media, including print, TV, film, books, or any other form of media/news. A prohibition from all social media platforms, no posting on social media, and a requirement that you communicate with your friends and family to exercise discretion in not posting on your behalf or posting any information about you. Let me just pause there, folks, because that is the federal government, Bill Barr's Department of Justice, casting a big old, unconstitutional net, trying to deprive lots of unnamed people of their First Amendment right to free speech. This says Michael Cohen can't say anything, and his friends and his family can't say anything about him. That's violating the First Amendment for dummies. That's what that is. And here's the last sentence. Here is the reason that Bill Barr's Department of Justice gives to why they're trying to shut Michael Cohen up and all his friends and all his family. You ready for this? So the purpose is to avoid glamorizing or bringing publicity to your status as a sentenced inmate serving a custodial term in the community. Oh, so we're not trying to keep you from talking about the president or your friends or your family. We're just trying to keep you from glamorizing the conditions of your home detention. Was Michael Cohen really going to go parading around glamorizing the fact that he was serving a felony sentence on home detention? Transparent nonsense. This is an unconstitutional attempt to violate Michael Cohen's First Amendment rights and the First Amendment rights of his friends and family, people they don't even bother naming in this condition that they try to strong-arm Michael Cohen into signing. Folks, I urge you to read yesterday's filing by Michael Cohen because it also catches Bill Barr's Department of Justice and Bureau of Prisons in a whole bunch of lies. And it pains me to say that because I have lots of friends and colleagues at both the Department of Justice and the Bureau of Prisons, and most of them are good, but some of them are corrupt to their core, as we are now learning. The other thing that I will say is it is clear that if you're over here, if you are Michael Flynn or Roger Stone or Paul Manafort, right? Michael Flynn gets to lie to the FBI and the vice president, and then Bill Barr tries to work his tail off tanking Mike Flynn's criminal case. Or if you're Roger Stone, you're a criminal associate of the president, and you lie to Congress, and you obstruct a congressional investigation, and you tamper with witnesses and threaten to kill them, and you're convicted by a jury of your peers, and you're sentenced to prison by a federal court judge, and then Donald Trump, with a pass of his corrupt pen, says, no, Roger Stone, you're good. You go scot-free. You don't have to spend a minute in prison. Or if you're Paul Manafort and you get sentenced to prison, but then you only serve a fraction of that term and you're put on home detention and you get to finish out your sentence on home detention. Or if you're over here and you're Michael Cohen and you have the nerve to exercise your First Amendment protected free speech rights and say something critical about the president. Well, what is pretty clear is that as far as Donald Trump is concerned, you're either the best of friends or you're the worst of friends. And Donald Trump and Bill Barr's Department of Justice will treat you accordingly, depending on whether you're over here or you're over here. Well, folks, this corruption has got to stop, and it will stop. First, by getting to the polls in numbers too big to rig in November, and then in January when we have a law-abiding president and a law-enforcing attorney general, accountability for every last criminal politician. Folks, please stay safe. And I look forward to talking with you all again tomorrow.